accusing Gensler of overreach and incompetence. Never before has this been on broader display than with these two lawsuits. It's quite interesting. Well, hello there. Mark Risen-Hopkins here, doing another update on some breaking massive news, I guess. It's been going over the last couple of days. It's a ongoing campaign by the SEC to apply chokehold 2.0 to the industry as it pertains to its little bit of jurisdiction within this ongoing battle. What is going on is yesterday, they announced a lawsuit early in the wee hours of the morning against the world's largest exchange for cryptocurrency, Binance, naming many issues that they found, mostly with the sale of unregistered securities, but other infractions as well. As well as this morning, they went after the largest exchange in the United States. Many of you know this one, and if not, use it on a daily basis. It's called Coinbase. Much the same sort of modus operandi between the two lawsuits. We're going to go down the details of what's going on here, why they're significant, what it means for the industry, what it means in terms of how the market is going to be reacting, and much more. If you want to read rather than to listen, we also have a written form of this available on the Substack. You can find it here on ask.drbitcoin@substack.com. There is a free and a paid version of this as well. We're going to go into all the details here, well behind the paywall, and try to get some of what's going on. So here's what happened. I woke up early morning yesterday to the news that Binance was being sued by the SEC. Not an unexpected move. Gary Gensler, both in the broad sense as well as specifically in his rhetoric around Binance and Coinbase, has been adversarial to the industry, to say the least. Every time the SEC has come out with a position paper or Gary Gensler has made public statements, not only has there been major opposition and kind of a bunch of head scratching as to why anything he said is supposed to make sense by people in the industry, but even folks within the organization, within the SEC and within Congress, which is the administrative body that acts as an overseer to the SEC, have also scratched their heads in a similar manner. Never before has this been on broader display than with these two lawsuits. It's quite interesting. So, but first, let's get into the details about what these lawsuits say. We're talking about the first one that came out yesterday, Binance. They named a laundry list of Binance-related properties, including Binance Holdings Limited, BAM Trading Services, BAM Management U.S. Holdings. Both of those organizations relate to Binance.us. And then, of course, they name CZ himself, which is the founder of Binance and the current CEO. They also named some ancillary and subsidiary organizations, including Merit Peak, Sigma Chain, and CoinMarketCap.com. So CoinMarketCap obviously was kind of the industry standard place to see, new cryptocurrencies and existing cryptocurrencies and find all sorts of statistics around them. Binance plays a major role in the ecosystem. And for those of you who are not familiar with the role that Binance plays in the ecosystem, it is probably one of the most positive actors in the industry of their own volition without regulatory pressure. For the SEC to go after Binance is actually somewhat of a ludicrous proposition, because we're talking about an organization that created something they call the SAFU fund, SAFU fund, where if Binance is hacked, or if there is some sort of vulnerability exploit, or even some things that are not directly related to the fault of the security teams of Binance, where investors are exploited or defrauded, CZ has walked in with that fund in many occasions to try to stabilize the market and make investors whole, many times when there was no legal obligation to do so, just as a good member of the cryptocurrency ecosystem. A lot of these organizations that are named here are made those positive, good actor attributes were made made possible by this coalition of organizations and pockets of capital that they've acquired over the years. And if you go into the details of this lawsuit, it has Gary Gensler's fingerprints all over it. The early analysis that came out from a lot of the pundits was this seems to be going after a lot of technical flaws with the way some of these tokens that are on the Binance exchange, they name like a half dozen out of tens of thousands of tokens that are on these exchanges. They name about a half dozen that were listed improperly in the eyes of the SEC. But then when you start to kind of see why they think they were listed improperly, it all comes down to the fact that they think that all tokens, regardless of how they are issued, are unregistered securities. The key allegations in the Binance suit, which was where we're starting, is something that was called internally. One of the allegations is allegations of impropriety around something that they call the Tai Chi plan and KYC violations. The SEC alleges that Binance implemented a deceptive strategy that they dubbed the Tai Chi plan to appear compliant with U.S. regulators while secretly allowing U.S. customers to continue trading. Binance is also accused of encouraging U.S. customers to circumvent the Know Your Customer restrictions. There was also allegations of oversight and control issues. Zhao, that is to say CZ, as the CEO of Binance, is alleged to have control over the Binance US platform's key systems and the final decision-making authority on its trading systems. This lawsuit also claims that BAM Trading and Binance had insufficient oversight and control over crypto assets on the Binance US platform, posing a substantial risk. It does not point to any instance where this risk was manifested into actual losses. It just says that the potential for risk exists due to the structure of how it was set up, and therefore, therefore they are culpable for fines and losses or what have you. It's again not very clear as to why why they're being held to such a high standard, given the fact that no actual loss was incurred in these instances. But here we are. Fraud, deceit, and misleading statements. BAM Trading and BAM Management, again, these are the holding companies for Binance.us, are accused of fraudulent practices, including wash trading, making false claims about their controls to prevent manipulative trading, and they're also charged with making false and misleading statements about trade surveillance and trading volumes on the Binance.us platform. This is not supported as of yet by any sort of data or evidence. This is something I would assume that would come out at trial. They're not obligated, the SEC or anybody making these lawsuits are not obligated to prove with evidence things in the suit paperwork, but ostensibly they have some sort of data science to back this up. Keep in mind that CZ and various parts of Binance were subpoenaed, very notably in the media, by the FBI and other law enforcement agencies. So they might actually have raw data that supports supports these allegations. But as of current, no such claims of support have been made in the media. Additionally, and this kind of goes back to really olden times when we're talking about cryptocurrency and blockchain, they're asserting that the very practice of ICOs and IEOs are securities and fraud violations. They said that Binance offered 100 million BNB tokens for their platforms. The lawsuit claims that crypto assets available for trading on the Binance platform, including BNB, BUSD, and the units of each of the crypto assets, are securities and are offered and sold as investment contracts and thus are securities. It's easy to rush past this point here, but I'm going to take a second and dive a little bit deeper because the implications here are a little bit mind-boggling and far-reaching. So to dissect those three sentences that I just read, Binance offered 100 million BNB tokens on the Binance platform. So Binance already had a ton of money. They weren't fundraising to support a development effort. They were launching a blockchain so they could further decentralize the business, push momentum and investment activities off of a centralized platform onto a decentralized platform, which is the goal of all cryptocurrency. It's an interesting play that they made years ago. I wasn't too bullish on it then, but at the time, but now I am. I've seen a lot of activity and pickup in the Binance ecosystem on their blockchain. It's been interesting and fun to watch. By any traditional measure, that was not issuance of an unlicensed security. That was the launch of software. The lawsuit further claims that the native token for Binance's blockchain, BNB, and BUSD, which is their asset-backed stablecoin, are both unlicensed crypto asset securities. This is something we've heard rumblings about for a minute coming from the SEC. This is one of the first allegations of direct in a lawsuit, in a legal action, where they've actually claimed that something which has no reasonable expectation of profit which is a stable coin, something that is dollar locked. There's no speculative value to a stable coin, is a security, which amongst the many tests for what is a security is something that it can be speculated on. What they are saying is simply because something is a crypto asset means it is a speculative vehicle and therefore is a security. This defies all logic and all measures of what a security has been in the history of U.S. securities law. So this marks a departure either from reason or a departure from prior case law. And so that little demarcation in the sand, that line in the sand, where you fall on that kind of depends on whether or not you believe that Gary Gensler and this SEC administration is operating in good faith or in bad faith. We'll get more into that towards the end here. I think you might know where I fall on that one, but we'll get to that discussion in a second. To the rest of the Binance lawsuit, the investment and other entities. The lawsuit involves other organizations that offer their tokens for sale on Binance, including, and you're going to recognize a lot of these names, Solana Labs, Cardano, Polygon, Protocol Labs, The Sandbox, Decentraland, Algorand Foundation, Algorand Inc., and Cody. These are all accused, but although they are not named in the lawsuit, these are all accused of offering and selling securities in the form of their native token on the Binance platform. All unlicensed securities, unlicensed by both Binance and their parent organizations. And then there is a variety of other technical violations that are not particularly worth getting into, but I'll relate back to the previous allegations in the lawsuit. Now, I went through this relatively quickly. If you go to my Substack, that you can obviously read into more depth on this, and there is a glossary of terms. If you don't understand all the legalese and the technical jargon that I'm throwing out there, there's a glossary of all these terms that I've used, like KYC and APIs and wash trading and that sort of thing. All right, let's move forward very briefly to the Coinbase case, and then we're going to try to wrap it up, put it all in context. So Coinbase's stock yesterday dropped on the news that Binance was being targeted by this suit, purely on the speculative value that Coinbase would be next. And sure enough, I'm on the train here. I'm doom scrolling through Twitter, and this is one of the first things that pops up today. So many of you might be here from the video that I recorded on TikTok and Instagram saying I was going to go into more depth. Well, here it is. But here are the alleged violations. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly because they all sound a lot like the Binance one we just went through. The alleged violations: SEC alleges that Coinbase and CGI, that is a Coinbase affiliated company, they failed to comply with the SEC Act, the Securities Exchange and Securities Act. The allegations claim that they neglected to register as an exchange, broker, or clearing agency, and they sold securities without offering or registering these offers for sale. Specifically, they're accused of violating sections 5, 15A and 17A and B of the Securities Act, and sections 5A and 5C of the Securities Act. They're just like in the case with Binance, they're not seeking criminal remedy. They're seeking a final judgment to permanently prevent defendants from further violating these laws, which is to say, these crypto companies must get out of the crypto business and then enforce the disgorgement of improperly acquired gains. That is, to pay back all the money in their coffers and then probably a little bit more on top. The court is said to hold jurisdiction because this is an American company. Now, this is a bit of a slight difference from the Binance case. They are charging, or they're suing Binance International because Binance.us was funded out of Binance International. Coinbase, on the other hand, is an American company. They're an American company on an American stock exchange because they went IPO, ironically, the same week that Gary Gensler was appointed as the chairman of the SEC. So here is the, and this is where we're starting to get in a little bit to context here. This is the schizophrenia of U.S. securities law. The SEC is also the governing body that approved Coinbase for their IPO. They took a look at their business and they said, are you disclosing or not disclosing the things that are proper for you to disclose or not disclose as you take your company public? There was no, and this comes straight out of the words of an analyst that was quoted in multiple articles today. There was no judgment call as to whether or not their business was legal or not, which conjures up wild images of like, can you just literally take any business that you want public? Can you just take any? If I'm a Mexican cartel shipping cocaine over the border, can I just take this company public? According to legal analysts quoted today around this paper, and you've seen them on CNBC saying the same thing. Yes, you can take any company public. The SEC won't stop you. If you're violating securities law, maybe they'll come after you. I mean, this is what makes no sense. This is what makes the SEC not an organization that's capable of navigating the modern waters of securities law and business law. But let's continue down the Coinbase case here. More allegations is that the entire model of custodying cryptocurrency creates an untenable risk. According to the SEC's allegations, Coinbase adopted the Crypto Rating Council framework to evaluate crypto assets before making them available for trading on their platform. Between 2019 and 2021, Coinbase more than doubled the number of crypto assets available for trading. However, Coinbase recognized the risk of offering crypto assets that could be considered securities. This is because, and I was involved in a lot of these standards bodies meetings that we were evaluating tokens to decide whether or not they were securities or not. We were applying what's known as the Howey test, which is a framework in securities law that allows you to look at an asset and determine whether or not it should be considered a security. We were using this and applying it to a variety of ways to offer tokens and a variety of ways to offer digital assets and issuances, and to make judgment calls as to whether or not it ought to be considered a security. Here's the problem. Since Gary Gensler has come into charge of the SEC, he has said on multiple occasions that every asset's a security if it's in cryptocurrency, because every crypto asset can be speculated on. There are a lot more allegations that in the suit that follow along these lines. But when you start looking at Gary Gensler's statements, which have been in the press today, he has said exactly what I just enumerated. If it's a crypto asset, it's a security. Why would he say that? Well, he says that because the SEC's mandate is to try to claim jurisdiction. This is the Gensler mandate, to claim jurisdiction over all crypto assets, and then to create a regulatory framework which prevents them from existing. Why? It's because of the larger initiative that has started over 3 years ago underneath the Department of Justice and spreading to other regulatory agencies across the federal government to create what's called Choke Point 2.0. We've done shorts on the CBDCs. We've done shorts on where the government plans to take digital currencies. They want to limit options from what's available out there on the market, so that the only option available to the general public, if you want digital currency and convenience, is to use a government-issued, government-backed currency. Probably the FedNow initiative that is set to be launched here in another month or two. So this is very reminiscent of previous regimes where the government has officially and unofficially adjusted banking policy and adjusted regulatory policy to disenfranchise entire segments of the population. Previously, if you Google or look up in Wikipedia, Choke Point, Operation Choke Point, you'll find this is a well-documented phenomenon that occurred 10 years ago that disenfranchised large swaths of business, large swaths of people who mostly at the lower rungs of society. This is essentially right out of the same playbook. And it's an escalating series of underground, and I say underground, unofficial policy statements within banking organizations that then culminates in regulatory changes and then culminates in ultimately in legislation. Sounds all doom and gloom. Bad news bears from Mark Hopkins here, because how can you be so into this and feel like this is so doomy and gloomy? Actually, it's not. I think it's interesting if you look back a couple of weeks to the congressional hearings where Gensler was called to the carpet in front of the congressional hearings, that he was reprimanded by a large number of House Republicans who felt like what was being done at the SEC limits innovation and is driving American business overseas. And I think that is evidenced by the fact that every major crypto exchange, including the highly licensed and regulatorily compliant Gemini exchange run by the Winklevoss twins, as well as the largest exchange, Coinbase, are all looking at incorporating overseas in the British Virgin Islands and the Middle East. And the Winklevoss twins met with the Deputy Prime Minister of Ireland last week to look at redomiciling the entire organization over there. What the Republicans are alleging Gensler and other regulatory bodies are forcing is actually happening. This is not just like some sort of crazy rhetoric for political purposes. This is actually creating a chilling effect on innovation in America. And so the light at the end of the tunnel here is that we've got the party with the that seems to be on the losing end of things right now from a political perspective. The Democrats are staking their futures on what they feel is a populist movement of anti-innovation, anti-AI, anti-crypto. And then you've got the Republicans looking, well, you know, we're the villains on everything else. Maybe we can be the heroes on this. And so they're trying to mop up the constituency that is used to be very, heavily Democrat voting, Silicon Valley and, the blue state metropolitan techno liberals. They're all seeing their livelihoods being threatened. So now the Republicans are saying, look, if we can keep this culture of anti-innovation at bay, maybe we can scoop up a new constituency. So for that reason, they are, at least at the moment, talking a good game and hopefully putting their money where their mouth is, introducing new bills that will gain support and get out of committee that might defund or might fire Gary Gensler. Both of these things are bills that are on the table currently in Congress. I'm not saying that it's a certainty or even a likelihood, but there is some political support to putting a stop to this. So it's not all doom and gloom. However, this is cause for concern. If you see initiatives rise up that will, call your congressmen, call your legislators. You see those types of letter writing campaigns emerge, and certainly if I see them, I will bring them to you. These are the types of things that you need to be getting involved in right now. Letter writing campaigns, they do work, specifically when you've got politically motivated opponents to bad ideas like this. So this is the state of things. It is a serious moment, but it's not a dire moment. Crypto will not die because of this, but it could get set back quite a bit. So it's definitely worth paying attention to. The market is paying attention to it. It's priced in. The market has lost about 10% of the value over the last 2 days, although it has rebounded about 5% in the last 6 hours or so. So it is certainly something that is serious, although not quite as existential threat to the entire industry. That's about all I have to say about that. I don't know if I could give you any more details without completely boring you or myself to tears, but we will be covering this as it develops, so definitely pay attention to this channel and all the other places where you can find me.
Hey, is this level? I think the framing, there we are. Hey, if you like that video, check out more. We got some over here, some over here, some over there. Check the description. Make sure you like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.